Liam, just before we get on to football matters, an unsavoury incident at Walsall that the club's made a statement about, and I suppose from your perspective and in defence of your team and football in general, there is just simply no place for racism in this game.
No, hugely disappointing when obviously you hear about it. And first and foremost, we don't forgetting football. We don't condone that in any walk of life. So I think we have to obviously leave it to the authorities to do their to do the investigation and look into it, and hopefully the people that were responsible are found for it. But the bit we can control now is making sure that we get around the player and look after him and support as and when. But yeah, there's no place for it. But I have to say, Walsall, in terms of how they've conducted themselves in, also taking the same approach as us to try and find out what happened and looking into it have been excellent as well. So I think that's what we have to do, is show that unified approach to to try and force it out the game and society in general, because there's no place for it.
And just on the football from that particular night, just very briefly, because we did speak about this post match, but I just wonder, since then, do performances like that, and it's very easy for people to say it's just the Papa John's Trophy, it's not a league game, and you're playing against a side who are in a lower division. It's very easy for people to do that. But was there a little lift? Have seen a noticeable lift from the players that were involved and around the place?
Yeah, I think from the Saturday game as well. I think the week in general, from heading in the direction that we need to in terms of performances, and I think alongside that, I think irrespective of who you're playing and what competition, I think players, showing bravery to step up and take the ball, players showing initiative to use their brains and think and solve problems in the game, and bring their qualities to the game. I think we saw that in both of the games. So I think I looked at the last couple of days. The lads are in a really good spot. The challenge is obviously now to take that into the game tomorrow and get the performance in playing a way that we want to and that we need to be able to control the game. But the lads have done really well, in the last week, and we need to make sure that we now take that performance into getting a result tomorrow.
Do you feel that there are kind of green shoots of recovery? I suppose green shoots of the side getting closer to where you want them to be.
Yeah, I believe so. I think when I look at, I say talk of Plymouth as well. The chances we created and the way we passed the ball at times to open up Plymouth. I thought we got into some really good dangerous areas. Obviously, the goals were as a result of us trying to do that. But I think that's the biggest thing. The players, the intent was right for me, and it was the elements of bravery and the structure was better, the decisions were better, and I think that's look at the two games. That's definitely a step in the right direction. I think that's collectively, but also individually. Some I thought of some really good individual performances in the last two games, which is also what we're crying out for, people to step up and deliver consistently. So I think when I look at it from the team and the individual angle, there's definitely progress. It's now making sure that we take the good stuff and add to the bits that are in place now, and not forget about it and move on to something new.
Never a dull moment when MK Dons play Wycombe.
Yeah, and we played them a lot last year, obviously. So yeah, we're obviously aware of the derby, the rivalry. So it's obviously say a big game going into it. It's a game that I think obviously everything that happened last season with them as well. We know it's a hugely competitive game, and one that I think the biggest thing is it has to be on us again. It has to be us, showing continued progress, us trying to dominate the game in our way to go and win.
And you talk about the rivalry, and I think that rivalry had been growing and growing, and there'd been some really good games between the two sides. And then last season almost pushed it on to another level. Clearly, obviously, playing 5 times and only losing once and then not going up was not getting to the playoff final was disappointing. But I think last season's all the games that took place were competitive and red cards, etc. It just really stoked it, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think that comes from Gareth and his staff. Done a terrific job there for a number of years. And I think again have a real strong culture and clarity in their identity. And I think we're getting to that. We had it last season. We're getting to it again this season in terms of what we are. And I think that's what brings that out. Obviously you have the geographical element, but I also think in terms of matchups of styles, it's actually one that I think is a good fit. That you get slightly contrasting styles that probably forces us to bring out really highlight our strengths, but also each other's weaknesses at times. So I think you get a real good matchup from that angle. So we've done the work to be really clear on what we need to do, and I think that's where the energy from the players and the staff needs to go into focusing on the actions that will hopefully lead to the result.
It seems to me as well as time goes on, um, potentially the contrast in styles is getting just a little bit closer. In as much as I think Gareth and Wycombe have realised that you can't just play football in a particular fashion, and they have more to their game than people actually, I think, to be fair, give them credit for. And in the same way, I think you and your squad and MK Dons have learned that sometimes free flowing football isn't always the way to do things. I think the two sides have maybe got a little bit closer in their contrast.
Yeah, I think there's no way of winning football, right? I think there's, it's an invasion game where I think that the one thing you don't want to do is become predictable, and I think that when you look at it, I think is what brings out the variation in order to try and get success. And they've got some quality in their side. They're not just a direct team. They've actually got some good footballers, and they can play if you let them as well. So, they're decent 1v1, good in wide areas. They've some actually really good technical players as well. So they can play football as well. They're not just a team that launches it forward. So I think we have to be really clear on that, and we're prepared for that. We're prepared to adapt to our style in terms of out of possession to to try and counter what they want to try and do, and the same bit with us in possession. If we have to recognise where the space is and where the spare players are, and we have to work really hard to exploit that.
It's hard not to for players who were involved last season. Especially in the two playoff games, it's hard for them not to want. Revenge is the wrong choice of words, but just a bit of payback. That clearly hurt everyone at MK Dons, and anyone who's left over from those two fixtures will want a little bit of something from this match, won't they?
Yeah, most likely. But again, I think same as last year. Everything's about being all in, and I think that doesn't change tomorrow because of who we're playing. I think. Of course, some players have different memories and experiences against Wycombe. Those that were with us last year, those that weren't, I'm sure will have different memories. And I think the biggest thing is of course, I want players that are emotionally invested. I want players that care. I want players that want to fight and and are hungry to win and driven. But at the same point, I think it will come down to controlling it. I think there's a fine line and there's a fine range of making sure that if we're if you get over aroused and overexcited for the game, it actually then leads to negative impact on performance. So we want to make sure that our emotions are in a sweet spot for me, and that we concentrate on the behaviours that we need to do to be successful.
Gareth McCleary, Wycombe's midfielder, called the game at Stadium MK one of the most difficult games in his entire career. And considering that Gareth played at a higher level as well, I suppose that's testament to the job that your side actually did last season against them at Stadium MK.
Yeah, really good player as well, Gareth. I thought he's one that's got some real quality. And again, I think it is what it is. Last year's gone. It's happened. We're a new group, a new team, and that's why my energy's not on last year in the group from last year and the experiences, because, of course, fond memories and challenging memories and disappointing memories. But for me, it's more about living in the present. It's more around reflecting on where we're at as a team at the minute, and making sure we continue to improve and continue to build on some of the positives we've seen recently.
Gareth Ainsworth's already done his interview about the game, and he's paid a great deal of respect to you as a coach, and I sense that there's a mutual respect between the two of you as coaches of clubs very close to each other.
Yeah, massively. Huge admiration for the career he's had to date, and I'm sure he'll continue to have. I think if you look at the success he's had at Wycombe for a sustained period, that's not easy to do. Especially obviously going through it myself now. When you look at the teams he's transitioned over the years, and the players I'm sure he's seen come in and out, and continue to to be a club that was obviously had success, promotions, and been able to bounce back again and again. So he's obviously done a fantastic job there, and he's someone obviously I have a huge amount of respect for.
It's going to be a good one for the fans, isn't it, Liam? Because a great opportunity. And do you feel, this game's got a little bit more pressure on it anyway, and I know that doesn't affect you so much because you're very solid along the lines with regards to that. But it's a great opportunity, isn't it? With everything that's been going on, it's a great opportunity for a feel-good factor inside Stadium MK.
Yeah, of course, and that's why the fans are so important. I think that from that angle, I think whatever the game starts like, making noise, making energy, creating an atmosphere where really feels like we're at home, I think can be massive for the players, and give us the boost and the lift, and swing momentum in our favour, which is ultimately important. And that from the fan angle, but from the player angle, it'll be a similar message. Go and give them something to get behind. Get on the front foot, go and be positive, go and take the ball, go and win headers, go and do do all the actions that you need to be successful in the game. And I think the most important bit, let's do it collectively. Let's do it as a group on the pitch. But if you can do it as a group on the pitch with the supporters behind it, I think that becomes even more powerful.
No fresh injury issues that you're looking at the moment. Everything's just Mo and Tenai.
Yep.
Well, it's good news, I suppose.
Yeah, good news. Good news. They're and them guys are getting closer as well. So that'll be a positive in the coming weeks as well.
I've just spoken to Nathan Holland as well, a player when and I've said this to him during the interview that we've just conducted, that when his name was touted around and he was signed by the club, I think there was a lot of very happy people. A player that had performed excellently the season before, and it's not quite got going for Nathan so far this season, but presumably you feel maybe Tuesday was a little step forward for the player himself.
Yeah, and Saturday I thought he actually showed some good moments on Saturday. So, and there's numerous things. It takes time for some players to adapt to how we want to play and what we're asking them to do. And again, obviously, I go back away with Nathan in terms of time at West Ham, and then obviously seeing what he's done already in League One. I know he's capable of being successful and having impact at the level, and it's now really pushing him and him pushing himself to be able to do that consistently. And yeah, it was a bit of a slow start with his injuries and other issues. He's actually now in a really good spot, and it's important that he takes ownership and continues that, and we'll do everything we can to keep pushing him, to keep supporting him and keep challenging him to contribute goals and assists. They're the big bits, but alongside that, being hard to beat and contributing to the team defensively, I think that's what the basis of what we need to be about, is be really hard to beat as a collective, but attack excitingly as a collective, and Nathan can definitely do that.
And Liam, would you played obviously Matt Smith on the right, in the right wing back position, and Henry Lawrence on the other side. Are they players that I realised that Matt's played in that position for Wales? I did actually realise when you told me on Tuesday night. Are they players that you'd maybe consider in the future for those positions? Are they if they play in a game like they did against Walsall, have they got the opportunity to play their way into the side and into the squad? And I'm not sure how much you'd seen of Matt playing in that position, but I thought he was excellent. Are those headaches that you've got now?
Yeah, definitely. They were definitely steps in the right direction for what we're looking for in terms of impact on games and personality, character, energy. And I think Matt's played there before for us, I think, as well. So it's something that I know he's capable of. And I think when you look at his strengths with his energy, his intensity, and his technically his quality on the ball, I think it's definitely something that we might look at in the future. So I think it's wherever he comes on, whether it's wing back, whether it's as a low in midfield, high in midfield, wherever he's coming, it's about coming on and having impact. And I think the starting point for that is around behaviours. It's around being brave, wanting the ball. It's around and what we try to produce is good footballers all round, where it's have a picture, think quickly, make good decisions. And I think that whether Henry's left or right, is the principles are the same, and that's why we coach the player and not necessarily the position.
I guess with Daniel Oyegoke, you've got the aerial presence, haven't you, both defensively and offensively at times, that is obviously part of the weighing up process of who you play in those positions, because he offers you something different in the box.
Yeah, no, it's key. I think that, and that's what sometimes is difficult for the players to understand. Sometimes you pick a team depending on what the team needs to be successful, against an opposition. It's not always on form or what we did in the last game. Sometimes you have to make tweaks, changes, depending on who you're playing and what their strengths are, and and putting people in positions to potentially counter that. So again, I think when you look at it, Daniel obviously his physical attributes, are definitely something that's of benefit. When it comes to set pieces, which we know is such a huge part of the game.
That's it for me. Thank you.
On Nathan signing, Liam, I think we've said quite a lot, haven't we, about the transition and how long it takes for people to settle and for players to settle into a new club, new environment, new style of play, and all that sort of thing. I mean, the fact that Nathan is now coming out a little bit more in the couple of cameos that we've seen him over the last week shows that it's not a simple fix. It's not something you can't just throw players in and they immediately swim. Sometimes it takes a few months and sometimes even a little bit longer for people to settle into a new club.
Yeah, of course. I think it's not a straightforward thing. It does take time. I think if you look at the majority of the league, or you look in the other leagues, Premier League, Championship, most teams that have the biggest transition are the ones that take longest to get going. And again, I think what we were really conscious of, and I think we're the first to look at ourselves and go, right, did we get it all right? Of course we didn't. It's impossible to, I think, to do the amount of business we did and get it all right. I think what we have to do is reflect and look at potentially how could we have done things to maybe hit the ground running a little bit quicker. What would have helped that? But irrespective of that, I think when you go through the change we did, and I think a lot of the recruitment we've done in the summer is to try and prevent being in a similar position where you're having this volume of players. I think what we've done a good job in the summer is actually creating what can be a level of consistency for the club in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. And again, I think that the difficulty sometimes is obviously we all want short-term instant success, but again, I think I've always said it is what we have to try and do, is safeguard and try and work for the long term in the club as well. So I think like I say, the balance of getting that short-term success has probably taken a little bit of hit, which arguably we could have maybe recruited some to help us maybe be a bit more successful in the short term. But I have complete faith in this group. When I see them train, when I see what they're capable of, I think the biggest challenge at the minute is taking it from training or flashes in games to for longer consistent periods. So I have complete faith in the group we've got here, and I get to see, like I said, the quality of them every day. And I'm confident that it will turn in terms of more complete performances, but then they get the results that will come with it.
And I know, admittedly, we are 2 months and 2 weeks out from it, but how much emphasis then goes on to the January window, and how important is that month going to be for you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an important window. I think it'll be important, but it'll be important we do the right business as well. I think it's not just a case of panicking and doing anything. I think we still have to do the right business. But I anticipate we'll do a fair amount of work in January to refine, because again, I think that's the most important bit when you have the volume of players we have in the squad, but the number of transfers we did in the summer. I think is then going to be a case of refining, to get the group closer to be in a position to compete and to be successful.
And January has notoriously been a pretty decent month for Dons. The last 2 windows in particular, I think they've done particularly well in that one.
Yeah, feels forever ago now, but last January was obviously some business that we didn't want, but business that we actually responded and reacted extremely well to, and what we did. And I think we're working on it now. Ram, Nathan, and Liam are working daily on what does January look like. What business are we going to be looking to do? What does the squad look like? What do we need? And that work's going on already now in terms of getting things ready for that, so that it's not a reaction. Then in January we can be quite proactive and forward thinking and planned ahead for what we need to do.